Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm Alan, co-founder and CTO of nPlan. So here's the question. Who do you think said this? I know it's only a question for one person in the room now, but all right. Yeah, you know the answer. You know the answer. And no, it was not Tom Pollan. No, it was nobody ever. Right? And I've heard this, like this is what I was saying a minute ago. I've heard this a bunch of times just this week, right? You've got planners and you've got schedulers. And like, sometimes it's even more aggressive and people have used terms like P6 jockey and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't care about like getting into derogatory commentary about it, but I think there's a point, right? There's a point in what is the good knowledge of planning and what is just drawing lines in P6. And everybody needs more of one and less of the other, right? I think we can all agree with that. Or like, if you do more of that, theoretically, you need more of the line drawing, but really that's not the intelligent thing, right? And so we sat down and thought about this for a minute and thought about how does this fit within like the ecosystem of everything that nPlan does, because it does become a bottleneck, right? So like we come from the angle of let's think about the outcomes of the project and let's try and flywheel the number and type of outcomes that you can think about and then you can model and you can draw conclusions from and make ultimately better decisions, right? There's like, there's a discipline that I fell in love with a couple of years ago. It's called the MDU, Decision Making Under Deep Uncertainty. It is very, very niche, but it clarifies some things that a lot of the time, like anyone who is in project controls has the same questions. So the MDU comes out of water management for the most part. It's a group of, I think there's like 120 people in the world right now in the MDU, so it's very tiny. It's almost as big as CPM conference. But the whole thing behind the MDU is we don't know what's in the future. In fact, we can't know what's in the future in terms of what's the next executive order going to be, all the way down to like, if we're planning a project for 10 years, what is technology going to look like? What is the economy going to look like? What is labor going to look like? We really don't know, right? And we can't know with any precision or certainty. So sort of like, let's accept this fact and let's model and make decisions in a way that is as robust as possible to these uncertainties. And that's the whole discipline, right? I'm not quite, I can understand why the Rand Corporation got into it, but I'm not quite sure how like most of it is about water management and city planning. I guess it's because of the long-term decisions that I have to make. But we started thinking about like, there's something missing in project controls to be able to do this, right? And I'm just framing why we got into schedule generation, because I think it's interesting to just have this idea in mind. If I want to look at 50,000 possible outcomes, I'm probably going to need 49,000 different schedules. You can't do that. You can't. And so we're thinking, how can we scale this up, right? So title of the presentation has changed a bunch of times. It's full schedule generation from AI or AI from raw documents. The reality is we have a product that basically does this. I have found a better summary of what it is. Press button, receive schedule, right? And like, sure, like I'm simplifying it a little bit. We have to put some things in, but basically that's the idea, right? The idea is, what do I do when I'm at the beginning of a project, I'm preparing a bid, whatever it is? Well, I'm going to go review a ton of documentation. I'll set up an initial schedule, which is vague and hand-wavy, but kind of gives an idea of the type of work that we're going to do. And that takes months. What if we can make that half an hour? And then you can go and focus on actually the stuff that matters, right? So I picked, does anybody know what that is? Okay. It's the drawing for, I think it's the latest, drawing, visualization of what the new Francis Scott Key Bridge is going to look like. And I picked it deliberately because I know nothing about it. And so I'll use that as our example going through, which actually it's a good example because it shows what schedule generation does well, but also what it doesn't. And I think that's super interesting. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to say, generate preliminary schedule for the construction of the new Francis Scott Key Bridge. This is like some information. I just felt like just having that one sentence prompt was probably not good. That's more my insecurity. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to upload a bunch of documents that I found on the internet about it. There's nothing private, proprietary, or secret that I took, and we'll see what comes out. Before I actually show you, Schedule Studio is just one product that we're going to put into our ecosystem, and it's the whole goal is edit, generate new schedules that you can then go and refine. Right? These are not production ready in any way, and it's not intended to, but it's more so that we can do fast modeling. So, that click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag that you have to do for like 5 weeks in a row. Hopefully we're going to get rid of that, give you a bit more of a life back, and focus on the bigger picture. If you can do this 20 times and choose the one that you like the most, that's probably a good outcome. And edit them quickly, right? Schedule and like, oh, I don't like this bit. Let's change it, right? Let's move all of this to offsite fabrication. Well, typically, if you do that in P6, you're going to spend a lot of time editing, right? I think that's time that you can save and start thinking about more important stuff. So what we're going to do is going to enter the task as a prompt, put some documents in, press a button, and that's going to give us a WBS. So we won't be able to actually refine the WBS. It's just a little bit too much work to show you live. But then we refine the WBS in the level 2 schedule, and then we press another button and we generate the detailed schedule. So I've done the cookery show trick of like, there's one I've done before, but hopefully I can just show you a lot of this stuff live. So I'm going to do something, please, with whatever religion you subscribe to, pray to whatever gods you need to do. I'm in Schedule Studio. I'm going to make a new project. I'm going to call it FSK Bridge Reconstruction because I've already got FSK Bridge. I'm going to hit Generate New Schedule, and I am going to go to a folder with 4 documents. One of them from Kiwit, actually, that I found on the internet. And I'm just going to hit process. This is the bit that actually takes a while, so I don't know how long it's going to take, especially with the internet connection that we've got here. But effectively what's happening is we're uploading the documents. Our platform is doing a lot of what we call fact extraction. So what it's going to do is going to go process each document, extract key facts that are important to creating a schedule. You could, for example, upload your rates, construction rates. You could upload your planning guidelines. You could upload, maybe I should have, you could have uploaded some AACE guidelines, whatever you want, right? Just throw it in. We'll extract as many relevant facts as possible, and they end up in a database. So this takes a little bit of time, but let's see if it actually runs a little bit to completion, because then we can just go straight from here rather than go to the one that I prepared before. But the idea is you have a lot of that information encoded. A lot of it's in your head, right? But a lot of it just exists. Especially, think about things like contracts and various agreements and liquidated damages clauses, all these things that, eventually you want in a schedule. They might be useful facts when we generate it, right? In the same way that you would do this, right? So we create this database of list of facts. Okay, this is going to take a while. I'm going to go to the one that I made before. And it's exactly at the same stage. So process the files. It's the same files. And I'm going to go copy that prompt that I showed you a minute ago. I'm going to put this in. Say, you want to add anything in here? You can add whatever you want. Like, we expect this to take about, I don't know. I'm going to hazard a guess. It's a bridge. It's a couple $1 billion, 3 years. I don't know. I'm making it up. All right. We need to demolish the first statement. I don't know. This is probably all happening already, right? I imagine, because it's ongoing. But we're going to pretend everything starts today. You could, right? So, like, do you wanna, what do you wanna put in there? So, top 4. Sorry, can you say that again?
I should be at like 50.
Okay, months should peak at 15%
on total project.
I don't know actually if it's going to be able to do this, right? This is interesting because we're going to test it. And what I'll do is, the schedule generation takes a while, so we are going to have to look at one that I made before. But I might just send it to you. You can tell me, does it look like crap or not, right? Yeah. Let's scare some people. All right. So, yeah. First thing that we're gonna do, like this is pre-baked, but we have to say like what phases do you want in the schedule, right? Sometimes you want procurement, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want design, sometimes you don't. So I'm gonna say design is done because there's like some visualizations. I think that's what we've settled on, but we definitely don't have demolition. So I'm gonna put that up here at the beginning, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, we call it generate WBS. It's actually more of a level 2 schedule because everything is connected together and is sequenced. Hit button, and it's this one. It is running. At some point, it will finish. But I'll show you one that's finished just so we save some time. I think this one. About 20 minutes. So actually at the end, we can go back and have a look, right? And so we have a summary schedule, right? And in fact, I'll show you the step between the summary schedule and the detailed schedule, and here's me maneuvering on a laptop, which is not fun. And we have this like vague visualization, and it's more about like, okay, let's review things quickly. Have we got the right stuff in? Right? I totally expect that at some point in the process, you're going to end up in P6, right? That is not going to stop happening, or Asta or MS other products, right? And it's, there's some stuff. A lot of it is permitting because we're early in the construction. It's the high level, level 2 stuff is very linear because it's just so high level. But you can kind of say, okay, I don't like this. This is the bit that isn't ready, and this is why I'm talking about roadmap, and we're just in closed beta for now. But here you'll have effectively a chat box that says, I don't think we need, I don't know, maybe you're crazy. I don't think we need to do foundation testing, right? Because YOLO. And then you describe that, and our engine will go and take that out, and maybe it'll ask you, are you sure? That doesn't seem like a great idea, but there'll be like maybe some safety stuff in here. But it's I don't think I said this in the prompt. Maybe I did, I'm not sure. Or maybe it's I know it's for sure in some of the documentation. It's maybe even on the Wikipedia page, which I downloaded and made a PDF, uploaded it back. But it's a cable stay bridge, right? It's even in the photo. And eventually we'll actually even be able to process photos and CAD designs and that stuff as part of fact extraction. Toll plazas, we're assuming it's a toll bridge. Is it? I don't actually know. Do you know? Is it a toll bridge? Right, but this is the kind of thing, right? You're going like, it's actually not a toll bridge, so let's get rid of anything to do with tolls, right? Or maybe that it wasn't there and you say like, okay, I need to add tools, this kind of stuff, right? So then we're done with that. We can go and generate a detailed schedule. So detailed schedule takes a little bit of time to load. Come on. Oh. Yeah. Reload. Oh. Isn't that working?
Good. Damn it. Good.
All that stuff comes later, right? Like all the analysis and the rest. Yeah. Those are like the products that we already have in the ecosystem, all the analysis and that kind of stuff. Okay, so now we're loading the detailed schedule. This is more just the let's create one, and then we'll just look at all the other stuff, right? You have any questions in the meanwhile while this loads?
That's all right.
Yeah. But it's a good question. I've actually got them open over here. We've got
Good.
so right now we're on like PDFs, Excel files. Next thing is going to be URLs and that kind of stuff. So a lot of it, like we're starting with like all the things that we can extract from text, but then we'll have the ability of putting in, as I said, pictures for sure, maybe even videos. We'll have CAD models, engineering designs, that kind of stuff. I don't know if we're going to go as far as BIM. But that part is actually something that also underpins the rest of our platform. So really that's moving in synchrony with our ability to process other documents on everything else on the risk management and portfolio management side of our platform. So actually one thing that you could upload in here, which we already manage on the other side, is a risk register. I don't know how it affects the schedule creation. Here we go. So what it's doing, I'll tell you a little bit more about how it works on the hood in a minute, but what it's doing is it's using a lot of our machine learning models. So we've got, I think, dozens of different types of models now, and it's combining a lot of those and creating effectively a query structure of what to do. And now look, we've got, this took forever to load, but we've got, first of all, it's not linear anymore, thank goodness, right? We've got a little bit more detailed schedule, and I'm going to zoom in a random part. I actually don't know what's going to show up here. Is it construction? Is it let's go find the construction stuff. So there's QC procedures. This looks like procurement, material storage. Sorry? Well, actually, yes, you can. That's a very good point. Let's see. There's actually a list of things. There's a geotechnical survey, which I imagine is something that makes sense. Let's find some of this. Construction. Here's a thing, right? Yeah, look. Great. Oh, that's specifications. Pour concrete for the pier shafts. That looks like it's a bottleneck in the schedule, but cap formwork. And then install pier protection systems, and then we're looking at abutments, kind of stuff that you'd expect, right? And all of this, like, obviously it's a little bit generic, right? I uploaded 4 generic documents. This is not what I expect people to do in real life, right? I expect you to have a little bit more information about the thing that you're building. But even then, right, like I can then take this and say, like, what's my risk profile? What are the things that I need to care about and worry about? I'm gonna pick a project over here later that hasn't loaded, so I'm gonna try and refresh it. But basically then what I can do is I'll just download it. Just download an XER file, which I've already downloaded, and ta-da! Loaded it into P6 through some TV magic. And we can look at, like, what is actually the Gantt chart going forward. And there's, at the beginning, we're looking at safety perimeters. We're removing the bridge deck because we're doing demolition. The thing is, like, we didn't tell it when we're going to start, right? So it's assuming it starts today. The first activity is actually 22nd of Jan, right? I mean, it probably is. Either way, right, we're talking about January 2025 because we didn't tell it. And that's kind of the key point. If you don't know, the model's not going to know. And then we can go all the way down. Yeah. Drainage systems, approach roads. Interesting, the last thing that it plans to do is the toll plaza. I guess you could do it earlier, right? But if you find that actually that's something that you want to accelerate the project, then you have these options, right? And you can say, I want to move the toll plaza in the beginning because it's kind of, you need the approach road, but just try the toll and then get them. Yeah. And yeah, that's basically where we are now. I'll tell you a little bit more about where we're going and what we're doing with it. And how it works. So it was seen, a couple of phases, and you get to something that you can start iterating, right? And it's kind of to me, it's like the solution to writer's block. Yeah. Yeah. So the only thing that we've pre-populated is phases, mostly because we expect most of this to be either linear or vertical construction. But there's no reason why you can generate those. It's just that it seemed to be like something that's just so common that we'll just put those in. And then you can edit them anyway, so you can have it be anything. I imagine there's if I think about the type of data that we've trained all the models on, there's not a lot of nuclear submarines. There's not a lot of... there's actually quite a bit of nuclear power plants stuff in there. I guess the bit about the nuclear power plant that we're not allowed to go even close to in the model is a nuclear island. But everything else around it, yes. And space programs, right? There's not a lot of that. There's some, so you still get something, but you probably have to supervise it a lot more. In terms of the data that we have. In terms of what documents, we recommend just basically anything that you would show a planner, right? Or that a planner would go and look at themselves. The other thing that is interesting is previous schedules, other projects that might be relevant. If you're doing work that's repeated, right? If you're doing turnarounds, here's my last 50 turnarounds. If you're doing LNG trains, power plant, yeah, right? So here's the ones that we've made before, because you expect it to be similar, right? No, I mean, the real limit is how much can you reasonably upload over an internet connection to the model. We've put documents that were up to, I think the biggest one that we put in was 5,000 pages, and that was sort of okay, it works. I don't actually know what the limit is. There probably is a limit at some point, right? But we set it up that it just takes longer to process. Right? the bigger the document, the more fact it's going to extract, the more stuff is going to go into the database, the longer it's going to take.
You look at the fact.
Yeah, fact extraction, that is basically we've been working on that for a while, and we actually pull in multiple different models to do fact extraction on our end, and that's something that is now part of the rest of the platform. Because if you're doing risk analysis and insights or future outcome projection or portfolio analysis, we want it so that you're not just uploading the schedules, you upload other documents that are relevant. And the first thing that we started was with risk registers, because it was kind of like the most adjacent thing to what we're doing in the rest of the platform. And we connect automatically risk registers to activities and emergent delays and all that kind of stuff. But then we're like, okay, so why don't we include contracts, right? Because we're going to have LD milestones and that kind of stuff connected to the contract, have some commentary. Right? And a lot of this powers also our agent and assistant to be able to say, tell me a little bit, like, we've got this risk, but how does it connect to LDs, right? What LDs am I most likely to get? Such like those types of conversations if you're looking at contracts. Or how, like, the one that I really like, which is a little bit hit and miss still, is how can I change the design of my project or the sequencing of my project so that I get better results. And we're building that in the core platform. A lot of it is based on fact extraction. Yeah.
Right.
So yes, but in a very particular way. So the part that learns from extracted facts is a language model that we develop and maintain that goes through a couple of steps, because we've trained that model on quite a few things. For example, like AAC library, IC library, ASC library, all of that information is in the model. But it had to go through various steps of, first of all, anonymizing facts and removing things that could be specific to an organization, right? And the reason, I guess, like, you have the anonymity data protection reason, but the other one is what is true for one organization won't be true for the other. So what then happens is that you have the model will learn what we can make generic statements about in the model training. But then you have a knowledge base, right? So the model accesses the knowledge base of your own facts. And in fact, sorry for using facts so much. There's one thing that I absolutely love about our platform that we just finished building. And I think only our customer success team are allowed to use it for now. But our agent can join calls and automatically write facts from what it learns from a call. And those facts go into your specific knowledge base, right? So there's the model, which gets trained on generic information. There's a global knowledge base of things like the libraries and that stuff. And then there's your knowledge base about the organization. And then there's your knowledge base about the project. So it goes down hierarchically, and we segment that information, a lot of it pretty deliberately. So, if you're on a call about a project, we'll only write notes and facts about the project, right? It won't generalize up to the organization. Yeah, I mean, this is all stuff that can be turned on and off, right? Because security concerns, I'm going to say chief data officers. Sometimes it's a valid concern, right? Like, I mean, if you're talking to DCMA, probably is a valid concern, right? A lot of the time, it isn't. I think, at least from my perspective, you get so much more from just having access to your own data. We're not going to share your data with anybody else, right? So nobody else is ever going to see your data. The only risk that exists is that someone kidnaps me and points a gun to my head and says, hand over a login. I mean, if I'm forced to choose between dying and handing over a login, I'm probably not going to die on that cross. Yeah, exactly, right? But and that is true of everywhere. And it's not like I'm inviting anyone to do that. But that's basically the limit where the security ends. But other than that, it's very segregated and very siloed in terms of data access. So a lot of the time we get these concerns because they're just general concerns about AI, and we've tried to address them as well as possible. And then if someone really, really wants to exclude stuff, we turn things off, right? So one thing that we've had to turn off in a couple of instances is actually the AI agent. So the thing that you can call up, talk to on WhatsApp, can join your meeting, or you can chat in the product and say, like, please help me with this thing. Because, ironically, we don't do the front-end language modeling. So, the conversation piece, there's no point in us developing our own LLMs for that. OpenAI are much better than that. So we do the conversational piece using an OpenAI API. And we switch around a lot on that. We switch between Claude, OpenAI, and Gemini. No, it's based on quality. So every time a new model comes out, we have a set of tests of 5,000 evaluations that we do. And we see if it's better, we'll just switch the model. So we do basically, we do treat it as continuous development. But, some people might not like that. And then we turn off the assistant because that's easy to do. It's a feature flag. Our customer success team does it. I don't advise it because the agreements that we have with those organizations, they cannot store the data. The thing that makes all this possible, I think, maybe I've mentioned this before, is the data set that we've collected, right? So these count changing, and we're sort of now at the point where it doesn't really matter what the next number is going to be, right? But we're looking at 750,000 validated schedules, 22 billion activities, which kind of equates to about 2.5 million years of project time. I don't know how much in work hours that is, but, it'll be another stupid number. I think this is the starting point of everything. Without this, none of the models that we built would be possible, right? I'll give you a little bit of a tour of what's under the hood, the models that we have and everything else. The whole idea is let's just do generative AI on specialized schedule data. So, we've got we started with forecasting, right? We built models that forecasted the uncertainty of the duration of an activity. That was the first thing that we ever did, right? And this was 2017. And the whole point of it was people are doing Monte Carlo analysis by sticking up a finger in the air and drawing a triangle. And as a statistician who has been in risk management, in finance, in quantitative finance for 8 years, that just made my skin crawl. And that's basically why we built a model that could learn to create, first of all, something that's more flexible than a triangle, but also based on actual data, right? Rather than plus minus 10%, or if you're sophisticated, minus 10% to plus 40, right? Then we got into graph modeling. So generative graph modeling is a very interesting one, because effectively what you have to do is you put in a prompt. I want to create a graph, and I mean graph in terms of a schedule that has these properties, and then a graph has to come out. But then we started thinking in multimodal terms. So you can have text plus graph that goes out to text plus graph. So you get, I've got this schedule, I want to edit it this way, and you get the edited thing and a list of things that changed. And that's basically the core thing that enabled us to do Schedule Studio, and that took forever to be able to build. This is about 3 years of research for us. And then we have, so like that model's called GraphGen, and then we have the language model that I told you about that's trained on all the facts. That is called ISLM. And it all fits into a mad schema of how things connect together. The cool thing is that loop, can you see it? Okay. Yeah, that loop that goes from the end of the pipeline back to the activity breakdown, that's when you make an edit. When you say, I don't like this, or I want to move the toll plaza, whatever. That's when you go through that loop and it runs these models again with your changed input. And I'll give you a little bit of a whistle tour of the types of models that I'm talking about. So first thing that underpins all of it is just understanding construction language. And I think this is probably the key element that unlocks all the other models, which is an embedded space. A little bit of a technical term, but it's effectively we can create a vector list of numbers for each thing in a schedule and for a whole schedule. And that number, or that list of numbers, is representative of the significance of the thing. So we move away from like, oh, people spell piling differently, or saying, maybe it was Greg, but people say it's spell machine differently. Doesn't matter, right? Because you'll have vectors that are close together when they have the same meaning. And meaning can come from a couple of things. I mean, you have resource, constraint, cost loading if you do it. You have name of activity, WBS structure, but also the position in the schedule, right? So back to like graph modeling, the whole graph is an input for every activity, which is a little bit computationally expensive, but it allows you to then do interesting things with that vector space. So that vector space has, I'm going to call them fun properties because they don't really lead to like being able to build interesting products on their own. But if you take the vector for concrete pour on a bridge, you subtract the vector for bridge, and you add the vector for hospital, you get a vector that is very close in terms of like epsilon, like zero distance, to the vector for piling on a hospital. So you get these like, and this is a common thing in machine learning, and in fact, embedded spaces exist all over the place. But if you think about embeddings for words, which is how this whole discipline started, the embeddings for words, you could take king, subtract man, add woman, and you get the vector for queen. Which, it's interesting because now you have a space in many, many, many dimensions. We use about 2,000, 2,500, where things that are similar or similar significance clump together, right? And that's the thing that enables the learning. Yeah, because we use the logic as part of the input for the embedding, right? And we don't tell the model what the dimensions are. We don't fix anything, right? This is just learned from the data. And so you'll have, like, I don't actually know, but you know, one of the columns could be the stadiumness of an activity, right? Or it could be the groundworkiness of it, right? And like these are all numbers that go from 0 to 1. That's basically the thing that enables everything else, because then you have things that clump together when they are similar. So then you can, you know, one interesting thing that we do is like you can actually just search your data set and find things that are close to the thing that we're predicting might be late. So then you can go and think about why were those things late in the past, right? It enables prediction, more importantly. And it enables us to build a foundation model that we've adapted to several different targets, but basically it goes from that embedding vector to an outcome of an activity, or a graph of all the embeddings in a schedule to the outcome of the schedule. And I use the outcome loosely, right? So we mostly use the delay model, but you could put all sorts of things, right? And so for Schedule Studio, we changed the target in Sonnet to be duration, right? And so that's how we predict the duration of an activity. And we've also had to modify the model a little bit so it can take facts as input, right? Because a fact might be a rate or a quantity, right? We need to pour 500 cubic meters of concrete, and we can do, I don't know, 10 cubic meters.
There you go.
Yeah. Like we have a lot of controls on the performance of the models. And in fact, if we didn't, it wouldn't be trainable. So with regards to duration, we basically say, can our model reconstruct the durations of everything in the data set, right? And we force it to just, for our data set, we don't actually have additional information. So it's literally just this activity name in this graph. Can you say what the right duration should be? And so we force it into like a very difficult corner. And then when we actually use it, we give it more information. So it's better than how we actually measure it during training. This model is the thing that's under the hood in forecasting in our insights and portfolio products. Next model, spoken about it a little bit. Language model that's trained on facts, libraries. This is under the hood, the thing that does the logic and planning for our agent. So, I mean, planning in a different way to scheduling here. It's deciding what things to do to execute the user's request. So it might be, I need to run a new analysis, or I need to call the auto report agent, or I need to send an email, generate a chart, those things, because it's trained on more specific and relevant information. And then once it has all the information, it just passes to a general language model to construct a response that makes sense in English, or any language that, those models. Last one is schedule and text, which is, again, I talked about it a little bit. We call it graph gen. I'm going to put in schedule, we're going to put in some text, I'm going to schedule out, text out. This is done deliberately so we could do this sort of iteration, right? So big loop again. Basically, these are the models that power all these different steps, right? So, for example, the sequence model is graph gen. Quantities, duration, and uncertainty is Sonnet. Activity breakdown is actually ISLM, because we train it on, we have a special version trained on activity names, right? Document processing is that fact extraction stage. That's a little bit how it works. Limitations, right? And I mentioned this, like, it's not production ready. There are going to be a lot of things that are missing or wrong, or just, we don't have information for. Currently, the public beta, you can only download the level 2 schedule. So I showed you a special development version that's a couple of steps ahead. That's really because the full detailed schedule sometimes is unreliable. It's the nature of developing a new product. Yeah, it's not ready to ship. And to give you an example, one of the things, actually, I don't actually know, but sometimes like durations get pushed out because it's very linear and it's very, very sequential sometimes. Then you end up with duration of the project doesn't match what you told it should be. You say, we're going to plan a project that should take 3 years, and you end up with a schedule that's 5. And who knows, like I have not tested this, but like maybe 5 was the correct duration. I don't know. But what should happen is if you tell it 3, you get 3, right? The level 2 sequences are still a little bit linear, right? And parallelism only appears in the detailed schedule for now. We're working on like training more of that behavior in and thinking more about parallelizing stuff. Can we do the toll plaza at the beginning? This is not really a limitation of the product, but like if you only upload generic information, you're gonna get a generic schedule. And also we haven't fully integrated it in the rest of the ecosystem, right? So this is what I talk to you about now is what is in our ecosystem. 3 of you are here. I'm gonna give you something for free. So please, if you are paying for Acumen Fuse, stop. To be able to build our insights and portfolio and auto report products, which do a lot of forecasting and report generation, we've had to build schedule quality checks, right? So if you go to Insights and upload a schedule and it doesn't pass a certain quality, and, we're talking about, DCMA 14 plus other things that make the schedule forecastable, you won't be able to upload it. You just get like a big red flag. It's like, here's your list of problems. Go fix that first, because otherwise any forecast that comes out won't be believable, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And I got a little bit frustrated about the fact that people are trying to charge for this. First of all, DCMA released all these guidelines for free. NASA built a MS Project plugin that you can download. I'm talking about 15 years ago, by the way. Where you can download it. It's a little bit annoying because you have to create, and I did this because I wanted to look at it. You have to create a NASA account. Every year you have to renew your secrecy agreement with NASA. It's like a little bit of like, it's not a lot of it's like paperwork, and I'm not going to use this for whatever purposes. But they did it and released it and gave it for free. And so I think just don't pay for it. There's no point. We don't actually keep any of the data when you use the schedule integrity checker. So if you close the window, that information is lost. You have to upload the schedule again. And we did it deliberately. It's literally just, I don't care about charging for integrity checks. And hopefully then that makes you curious about the forecast. So, yeah. It's not an ML problem, but like, actually, you might find this interesting. We've actually included Barry into the schedule integrity checker, but it is prompted in a different way. So it has a system prompt that's designed to make you curious about the forecast. So then you go and start a trial of insights, right? So it's like a little bit of like trying to convince people like, there's more to schedule integrity, but yeah, schedule integrity is free. And then the other products in our platform, I'll go through them in order. So you got Insights, which is I have one project, multiple schedules in the project, whatever. And I want to find the options to de-risk the project. I want to control the outcome. And that's all this is designed for. If I can do it for one project, I should be able to do it for 5,000. So that's our portfolio product. And then you can start thinking about portfolio-wide issues, right? So it could be that show me all the schedules that have problem with groundworks, right? Where groundworks are forecasted to be late. Well, that might just emerge, right? One of the features that's shown here, so let's see if I can zoom. Can I zoom? No. Is work and risks forecasted ahead, broken down by type of work. And actually, this is all done automatically. You don't have to categorize that. It just all happens from the ML. And it shows you the issues at the bottom. And there's a lot of features in Portfolio that are designed basically, A, for needle finding in haystacks, and B, for overall system management of a large set of projects. Automatic reporting, this is integrated into both Insights and Portfolio, but you can also get it by itself without the forecast. Basically, you can type, I want a progress and risk report. I want a successes, opportunities, failures and threats report. I want a extension of time report that I can use to request an EOT on this milestone, use of the forecast, blah, blah, blah. You just type in what you want and it generates various different sections with the visualizations that it will come up with, and then you can go and edit it and change all the different prompts for each section, and basically stop spending time in Microsoft Word. Barry is the agent that ties it all together, right? So that thing that I told you joins the meetings, writes the facts out, so that like the demo that I did a couple of months ago of, we call it Barry Connect when it's able to join a meeting, was that we had a forecast and we had this fake call between me and a couple of people in customer success, and we said, hey, pirates stole our copper. What can we do, right? And like a note appeared that pirates stole copper in the risk register, and it got connected to the forecast, right? And so then when somebody else went into Insights and asked Barry, like, what are the problems that are coming up? So, well, it looks like someone stole your copper. You might want to replan according to having to procure the copper again somehow, right? Or go find the pirates and buy it back. I don't know, right? And the whole point here is basically bring the information to where you are, right? So like joins meetings, a response to emails, you can use WhatsApp, Slack. You connect it basically to your organization so that information that is right now in Insights and Portfolio, it can come to you. Cool. No, it's long. We got time. I'm gonna probably finish early, so I'm gonna try and get through it. What's coming, right? I think there's like 3 modalities for Schedule Studio that are useful. One is just generate that new schedule so you have a good starting point. The other is editing, which is the one that there's these other 2 I can't show you right now, but that's what's coming up. Edit a schedule. So you can even upload, say that you have a schedule, you put it into Schedule Integrity Checker, doesn't look great. Upload it to Schedule Studio and say, like, I need to fix these problems. Go, right? That's an example. Or you want to change it. However you want to edit it, right? You describe the edit and you should be able to get something back. The other one that I found interesting and that we got asked a lot as soon as we started testing the idea of Schedule Studio is I have 10 level 5 schedules for my program, and I need to generate a level 2 schedule for, I don't know, Government Accountability Office, or whatever it is, right? So like this idea of like create an integrated master schedule, which takes forever and a lot of time has missing information in it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just upload them and try and get something out. You should be able to get something good. We actually have a version of GraphGen that is just designed for summarization. And so we tried it. It seems to work pretty well. We're going to put it in Schedule Studio. In terms of timeline, so we're in, oh my gosh, sorry about the colors. I'll just read it out to you. We're in open beta right now. So I'll share a couple of QR codes with you at the end. You can go sign up now, go test it out. You'll get to WBS generation. At some point, we're going to enable full detailed schedule. In the meanwhile, we're also going to have other schedulers input. So that's coming. And then by the end of the year, this will be fully integrated into our platform so that when you are in Insights and you are looking at scenarios no longer only means let's edit the probabilities. So saying like, this risk, exclude this risk, see what happens, exclude this other risk, see what happens, or edit durations, but it also just means let's look at a completely orthogonal option with a different schedule. And then finally, 2026, a little bit vaguer timeline, is we're just going to include this into Barry. So like call it up and say like, make me a schedule. This will have, specific requirements about like a lot of data existing in a data lake that we can access, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mostly because of the fact that if you're going to call it up or send it a Slack message, you're probably not going to get enough documents to do something useful. That's the timeline that we're on. I don't know where on this timeline. I think probably end of 2025 with full integration into the platform is when we actually just release it publicly as a product you can sign up for. We are experimenting with what good pricing looks like. Is it a license platform? Is it a credit system? There's various different options, and everybody's got an opinion, so we're just researching that at the moment. So one of the things that will happen if you sign up for the open beta is that you'll get an invite to do like 15, 30-minute phone call to just like hear your ideas on it. Yeah, that's timeline. In terms of things that, I'd like you to take away of like, these are the things that you can just press button, receive schedule. So if I want to generate preliminary schedule setup, that's kind of what we've done today. I want to replan something in some specific way. I want to see what happens if an event happens. Like, what happens if pirates steal our copper, like the example from before? Well, right now, what you have to do is you have to create a new version of the schedule. But, maybe you can outsource that to Schedule Studio. And then full design changes, right? Like, here's a different 3D model. What does that mean for the schedule? How does it change? That's kind of like one of the grail outcomes. And in terms of how it fits in the rest of the platform, right? Like, you can generate a new schedule, you go and review and edit it, you can do your risk assessments, and then start thinking about the scenarios, generate new options. For each of those options, you can generate new schedules. The idea is that that's just the click of a button. Generating new options could be something that you do in collaboration with Barry. It's like, okay, give me some ideas, and here's some other ideas that I have, and you can compile those things pretty quickly. So the whole loop here is like, the more you go through this loop, the more you've assured the project for reliability of completion, as well as like potential acceleration ideas, I guess, depending on what you're using the new options for. And yeah, 3 things that you can do. You can sign up for the beta. You can go just look at our platform. The middle one just takes you to our website. And the last one is get schedule integrity for free. Stop paying for Acumen Fuse. Just don't. But yeah, I would love, the other thing that we're doing is, for anyone that signs up for the beta, you get free credits to use the product as much as you want. There's no limitation on how you then use the schedules. So, if they turn out to be useful to you, that's great. We just want to hear about it. We'll probably ask for commentary on the schedules that are generated, or without probably, we do, right? Because that's how we know what bits we need to improve in our process. So they really, the only payment form that we're asking for right now is just some feedback. Yeah. Okay. It's very common, by the way, right? Because like there's a lot on the platform, and a lot of it stems from data. So then it's very easy to go quick into that. I think the key thing is that there's a lot of things, right? So like, sure, there's like 750,000 schedules. There's a data lake of things that you can upload, and like we've got connectors to things like Procore, SharePoint, etc. Whatever. Right.
That's like aspects out of that conversation. It's like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and that's quite common, right? Because like there's a lot to unpack, especially when it's the first time that you talk to us. And really, like, we probably should be doing a better job in those meetings to start it from here, saying like, here's the whole thing. I guess I can take that back to to. And there's a lot of fun stuff that comes out of activities. We released a report in 2022 of things that we're allowed to say about our data set, which is just so generic. There's like, the state of the industry during COVID and pre-COVID, and how does that change things? And that was just an interesting, like, you can download it off our website. It was just an interesting study of like, here's how the world changed during a global event. There's probably other things that we can do like that. We haven't haven't really looked into it
Too much.
that might be interesting. The one that let me see if I can find it. I don't have it. I don't have it here. We made some charts of like what does it look like in terms of delay profile for all the activities that we have, and what does it look like for delay of projects. And one of the things that is super interesting is that out of 22 billion activities, like 20 billion of them, I'm kind of like making up numbers, but it feels like about 90% are actualized exactly on time, right? But if you look at completion milestones, it's almost the opposite, right? And that just in itself just represents an interesting question, which has got nothing to do with what we do or sell. Of like, why is it that 90% of activities are done in the duration that you expect them to? Maybe they start late, but they're done in the duration that you expect them to. But 90% of projects don't. 85, I think we found, right? And a lot of it is just, you know how big schedules can be, right? You just need one of them to go over to just keep pushing everything out. And a lot of it is just lack of elasticity and flexibility and adaptation in the schedules because they're so deterministic and rigid, right? The network matters a lot, right? Yeah, it does. And so in Insights, we've got a little section called Schedule AI, which I didn't even talk about, but that's sort of like our experimental section within the product. So there are things like you can do schedule comparison and it'll just give you a PDF report, like how have these schedules changed in terms of scope, what kind of work are you doing differently, rather than, you've moved 3 links. But another one is we called it the schedule optimizer. It's a little bit of a weird name because all it's doing is looking at network and sequence with the forecast next to it. And it's basically doing I guess you could call it a sensitivity analysis. And it looks at what things can be moved. And because we have GraphGen that's trained on all the data set, you kind of know like what things can you move and what things shouldn't you move. So it's not just, just crash everything mechanically. What things can you move and how do you move them around to like reduce the forecast, right? And it's hit and miss because it's an experimental tool, but then you get like a PDF that tells you like, you need to change this scope, move the toll plaza, right? It's that type of thinking. And if you move the toll plaza, your end date at 90% probability comes in by 6 months, kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, but all of the things that we do, for the most part, if it's 50,000 activities, maybe you're talking about an hour or a couple of hours to run something. But if you're in like up to 10,000, we're talking about like half an hour, right? Which then means that the whole point of all of this is, can you scale it up, right? Can you look at 5,000 options every time there's a new schedule update? Yeah.
That's corporate.
Yeah, and if you have your own dashboards in Power BI, there's no reason why you couldn't just pull stuff out, right? Like we've got a couple of clients that do it. A couple of clients we ended up, because of the size of data that we're putting out, we ended up having to create a separate BigQuery database that we dump things in and they can access it, for example. So it's not as simple as an API a lot of the time, just because, you might be having an API call that comes back with 20 gigabytes of data, right? That's not exactly a well-functioning API call that you can do. But we have all these things that we've done in the past. Sweet.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Thanks. So the only thing that's in open beta is Schedule Studio. So this thing that I showed you today. Everything else is live. You can sign up for a free trial. You can go look at, we've got like a whole training platform. We've got a bunch of videos, documentation, everything else. Yeah. The rest of the platform is fully live. So really the only thing, Schedule Studio. There are some features that are in beta with some customers. So 1385 Go Barry is semi-closed beta. You kind of just like, okay, I want to be added to the whitelist for the WhatsApp. Mostly because, again, there's like so many moving parts. Sometimes it breaks down. But actually, the email agent is open to everybody. Well, everybody who has an account, right? So if you email it and you don't have an account, you're just going to be told like, hey, sorry, I don't know who you are. Sweet. Thank you so much.